The Nürburgring is the next port of call for the Porsche Carrera Cup. Races 5 and 6 will be staged at the tradition steep circuit in the Eifel region. And one thing is clear, it's going to be hot. The Wagner drivers have dominated proceedings so far. Michael Ammermuller won 2 races in Oschersleben and Thomas Preining came out on top in Spielberg. The Austrian is buoyed by the momentum. That was brilliant, of course. We're lying second in the championship, and now we hope we can continue like that. From the Alps to the Eifel region, with a packed paddock, the Scandinavian Carrera Cup visits the Nürburgring. 44 cars will be in action on the 3.6-kilometer track. The joint events are an idea we like to pursue in the one-make series. And we support one another. Our colleagues have never driven abroad, and our colleagues from the Scandinavian Carrera Cup are our first choice.
Yeah, it's great to finally be here. We have been preparing this for like 6 months, and it takes a lot of time to get everything right and, you know, cross over with the regulations and stuff. But yeah, so I'm really looking forward to the race.
The drivers will be taking the wheel in the same race, but competing in different classifications. Lucas Sundal is the leader in the Scandinavian Cup, just ahead of 2013 champion Oscar Palm. The Nürburgring is new territory for many Swedes, which is why seasoned Carrera Cup driver Robert Lucas will present the track.
That's the last corner on Nürburgring. A very smooth exit is very important. There's a start-finish line with the top speed of 235-240 kilometers per hour. From 6th gear we go down to the 1st gear, very hard braking on the first corner. A good line is here very important. And going up to the 4th gear, to the left handle on the 3rd gear, and very smooth going to the corner. Trying not to hit the curbs on the right side, going down to 2nd gear, trying to hit the curbs as much as possible to the right corner, short shifting 3rd gear, trying not to jump the car so much as possible. Down here we have the Grand Prix course and we are taking now the shortcut to the right. 2nd gear, very soon on throttle, hitting a little bit the curb on the left side, going up to the 4th gear and 3rd down to the left. Very fast corner, trying now to get a good exit as possible before the long straight. This is the point where we have the highest top speed on the whole circuit, 250 kilometers per hour. Going down now to the 2nd gear, very hard braking to the chicane, very big curves, trying to hit them very smoothly. Don't jump too high. A good exit is very important out of the chicane. And that's the last corner on the 2nd gear, going into the brakes so long as possible and trying to have a good exit to the start-finish line. That was one lap with Robert Lucas on the Nürburgring.
Saturday's qualifying lived up to its billing, with action galore. Tom Lautenschlager brought his Porsche to a halt just before the tyre wall, forcing the stewards of the meeting to interrupt the session. But the favourites remained on track. Larry Ten Voorde clinched P3. Guest starter Jaap van Lagen made use of every millimetre, finishing 2nd. And Thomas Preining picked up where he left off, scoring 2 pole positions. Everything is going according to plan at the moment. It's very quiet in the team, we all work calmly and with focus. And I think these are the main factors for our recent success. And I think we will continue like that. It seems to work. And hopefully we will catch up quite a bit. Lucas Sundal was the fastest Scandinavian guest starter and was pleased with his P17.
It was good, and I think I got a quite perfect lap, but the Germans are even quicker.
So you join us at the end of the second formation lap, 2 formation laps because of the sheer number of cars. 5th race of the season, Thomas Preining pole position. Guest starter is Jaap van Lagen going from P2, and P3 is Larry ten Voorde. A long time for the front row to wait as we go on board with Larry ten Voorde then, whose visor is more tanned than his legs are. We're being shown in the paddock just ahead of the start of race 1. Here we go. Thomas Preining dives to the inside to protect that inside line ahead of Jaap van Lagen and Larry ten Voorde behind him. So Robert Lucas with a perfect start dives up from P8 to P4. 44 cars all make their way through turn number 1 with no crashes. On board with Tom Zimmermann here, who's fighting with Jean-Baptiste Simonau and Dylan Pereira. So great onboard shots then from the Tim Zimmermann car. This is turn number 5 now. Thomas Preining, Jaap van Lagen, Robert Lucas, Henrik Skoog, Igor Valilko and Glenn Van Paris as well. On board with Jake Eidson, in front of Tony Wolff. Gustav Malja managing here to get to the inside and will go through and pass him. So good move there by Gustav Malja. One of the race union drivers is Richard Wagner, and here he gets out of shape. Applies the brakes, through the dust, makes contact with the Armco barriers, and Richard Wagner finds himself pointing in the wrong direction. So Thomas Preining looking pretty comfortable out front, followed by Jaap van Lagen. Larry ten Voorde, as we go on board with Robert Lucas, is fighting with Robert Lucas for P3. Ten Voorde loses out. In fact, he loses 2 positions because Henrik Skoog has gone through as well. So the initial hard part of that battle was with Robert Lucas. Let's hear from him. Things weren't so bad at the beginning. I overtook Larry in turn number 1. I was a little shocked that he didn't see me. We were racing side by side and he hit my car pretty roughly. My rims are quite scratched. The car was very hard to drive then, and I began to have some problems. A lot was happening. I turned into the first corner and didn't expect Lucas to be alongside me because I was so focused on moving up. I turned and we touched. I'm sorry. I've heard it was my fault. It takes a big man to apologise, and it takes a big man to try and wrestle back those 2 places he's lost, as Larry ten Voorde, who we're on board with now, continues to fight with Henrik Skoog and Robert Lucas through turn number 1. Now Larry ten Voorde is on the outside here. Robert Lucas, as we can see, is on the inside of that turn number 2. But Larry ten Voorde now dives to the inside, and Henrik Skoog trying to follow in the wheel tracks as well. So Larry ten Voorde then puts himself back ahead of Robert Lucas and Henrik Skoog. Heading towards the NGK chicane, a lockup comes from Dylan Pereira. That means that he will shortcut the chicane, and the loss of momentum means he loses positions as well. We saw the BWT Lechner driver Mikael Ammermuller going past. He got set back in the starting grid 5 places because of ignoring a red flag in the qualifying session. The car's heading towards turn number 1, which is almost like a hairpin. You go downhill and then come back upon yourself as around goes Glenn Van Paris. So he manages to keep his foot on the throttle and get the car going once again, but loses a whole heap of places. And here we can see just the back end of the car losing out. I wonder if there was a little assist there from Igor Valilko. Well, here we can tell from being on board, the number 37 car makes contact with the Glenn Van Paris car. The MRS GT racing driver goes around, puts his foot back on the throttle and manages to recover from there, not before having lost a whole heap of places, though. Thomas Preining looking pretty comfortable out front. We're on board with Jacob Eidson now, with Glenn Van Paris having to fight with him because he's lost position. So a better exit off the chicane for Glenn Van Paris, who puts himself on the inside of the Jacob Eidson car around the Coca-Cola turn, and that means that, well, at least 1 place is made back up. This is a bold move from Dylan Pereira, who dives to the inside of Marius Nacken. And although he carries a lot of speed into turn number 1, we're on board with Marius Nacken, who's trying to fight back, but the momentum that Dylan Pereira has is enough for him to secure that P9 position. With the Frank Garage car in the pit lane, let's take a look at the Porsche Carrera Cup Scandinavia. And it's Lucas Sundahl who is the fastest Scandinavian driver, and he's running at the moment between the gentleman drivers Jorn Schmidt-Stade and Carlos Rivas. And he looks like he's reeling in Jorn Schmidt-Stade, and sure enough, he gets a better exit off the chicane, puts himself on the inside of the Jorn Schmidt-Stade car, and that will be another place for Lucas Sundahl as he moves up, and Carlos Rivas trying to take advantage of the situation as well. And Carlos Rivas will go through as they head in towards turn number 1. So Jorn Schmidt-Stade losing out on 2 places there. Good move by Lucas Sundal, the best of the Scandinavian Porsche Carrera Cup drivers at the moment. Having a torrid time of it, though, is Bergström, as you can see here in the 942 car. He from Team Pampas Racing, Christopher Bergström, makes mincemeat of one of the polystyrene barriers and spins himself around. On board with Carlos Rivas behind Lucas Sundal. Sandro Kaibach, new into the Porsche Carrera Cup, passes him through on the inside. Just a few meters later, Tom Lautenschlager would have a go as well. As you can see, Tom Lautenschlager goes through initially on the inside, but then is carrying so much speed, he loses the back end of the car. Good avoidance by Carlos Rivas. Unfortunately, Oscar Palm, though, does just make contact with the stricken Tom Lautenschlager car. He missed me by a millimeter when he spun. I thought that would be it, but he just missed me. And I thought, okay, I'll just go on then. So Lady Luck shone on Carlos Rivas, who was able to avoid the Tom Lautenschlager car. Unfortunately for the P2 driver in the Scandinavian Cup Championship, Oscar Palm, the luck was not so good. He, of course, did make contact with the rear end of the car, and as you can see, the damage sustained to that car means that he can take no further part in the race, and clearly the disappointment is felt. The Swedish driver, Gustav Malja for Project One Motorsport, actually races in the Porsche Carrera Cup Germany, and as you can see, runs off the track, takes in some gravel and one of the advertising hoardings as well. As you can see here, Matthias Weiland in car number 17 for Car Collection Motorsport slows on the start-finish straight, and just passing him, the race leader Thomas Preining, then P2 Jaap van Lagen, and of course Larry ten Voorde running in P3. Igor Valilko gets a drive-through penalty because of his collision earlier on in the race with Glenn Van Paris, and he serves that. Gentlemen drivers fighting for P1 in their class. Carlos Rivas is in front of Jorn Schmidt-Stade. Carlos Rivas has been very unlucky in the races so far this year. Is he going to be able to bank his first points? And this is Lucas versus Skog versus Ammermuller. And Mikael Ammermuller to the inside of Henrik Skog on the exit of the chicane going into the Coca-Cola turn. He'll get the overtake done before they even reach the start-finish line. Brilliant move by Mikael Ammermuller. Let's go on board now with Marius Nacken, who's chasing down Jean-Baptiste Simonauer. So as they head towards the right-hander, which links the sprint track with the Grand Prix circuit, Marius Nacken goes through on the inside and moves up a place, having overtaken Jean-Baptiste Simonauer. In the walls is Robert Lucas, who's running out wide. He's under intense pressure from Mikael Ammermuller, who of course took a 5-place grid drop and started further back down on the grid than he would have liked. So the off-track moment for Robert Lucas costs him 2 positions. I overtook Skog in turn 1, and then I was just behind Lucas, who made a little error under braking. Perhaps he saw me and wanted to go faster, and was too fast then. I was lucky. I had no traffic then, and tried to close the gap to ten Voorde. So the one-mate cup action comes thick and fast. Hugo Anderson for Stabo Racing going around, and Chris Wright makes contact on the car of Thomas Carlson here. And Christopher Bergström also has to take avoiding action. So on to the final lap, and Thomas Preining then, who will seal a lights to flag victory, will seal his 3rd victory in a row. Having taken the 2 wins at the Red Bull Ring in Austria, he weaves from side to side and takes the checkered flag a full 5 seconds ahead of the P2 driver Jaap van Lagen. Walter Lechner Jr. and his team are very happy. The fastest driver of the Porsche Carrera Cup Scandinavia is this man, Lucas Sundal. A good drive from Lucas Sundal, and a good drive too from Carlos Rivas. Centre picture now in the silver car. He wins the amateur race, and Thomas Preining is a very happy man in Parc Fermé. I was able to control the pace quite well. I had a good getaway, and I built a little gap straight away. So it was one of my favourite races this year, and I hope we can repeat this tomorrow. Lucas Sundal wins the Porsche Carrera Cup Scandinavia race ahead of Roar Lindland and Magnus Oman. So the drivers make their way onto the podium. There is Thomas Preining, there is Jaap van Lagen, and there is Larry ten Voorde. So P1 Thomas Preining, P2 Jaap van Lagen, P3 for Larry ten Voorde. Trophy's about to be presented and then the celebrations can begin, and BWT Wagner Racing Team are very happy, though Jaap van Lagen is really surprised at the pace of Thomas Preining. It was a good race for me, but I think Preining had a Porsche Gen 3 or something. I don't know. He's considerably faster, which was also the case in Budapest last week. Second place is good. I was as quick as all the others, only Preining is a bit faster. I'm satisfied with P2. The team did a good job. Let's repeat it tomorrow. Black Falcon are headquartered close to the track. Since their foundation in 2006, the young team have become an ultra-modern company. They are long established in international GT racing, and the location is a trump card. If we want to try something, we can just visit the Grand Prix circuit here or the Mullenbach-Schleife in the evening. It's an enormous advantage, of course, if you want to try something. Many automotive companies are nearby. We have test facilities, many suppliers. It's definitely a big advantage. The debut season in the Carrera Cup, a success. 2 race wins in the Pro Championship and 2nd place in the amateur classification. Now they're aiming to add to their tally. Their home race at the Nürburgring is a special focus. And thanks to a special permit, they are allowed to travel directly from their headquarters to the circuit, back to winning ways. Thanks to this special go-ahead. We were really confident we could clinch the championship title this year, but that's racing. It's hard to predict. And this year, he's been out of luck, here and there. The man in question is Carlos Rivas, who is under pressure after 2 jump starts in Oschersleben. The man from Luxembourg is overdoing it. The championship is all but lost after the races in Austria. He was a little wild here and there. He always has good starts and then wants to wrap up the race in the first 3 laps. It didn't work out every time, but still, we trust him. Keep going. Stay focused. No matter how small their chances are in the championship, giving up is not an option for Carlos Rivas. The tactics would be to make as few mistakes as possible and hope our competitors make mistakes and are out of luck. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult, but that's part of it, and we'll fight until the end. Steer, shift, accelerate. It's mainly your head that wins you races, especially in the one-make series. The mental realm is often underestimated. In the Carrera Cup, Porsche offers professional support, and not only to the pro drivers, the so-called gentleman drivers too learn how to cope with extreme situations. They shoot themselves in the foot relatively often, most of all mentally. They lose their heads if they're in mental stress, something that's quite often the case in racing. And that's the second step, to come up with an idea of how to deal with it and what you can do to get better and stronger. It's not as if you get better or faster by it, but you can better demonstrate your qualities. Mentally strengthened, Carlos Rivas makes the most of his chance, clinching his first amateur victory in the 5th race. Taken all together, it's the 3rd triumph for crowd pleaser CR6. I served a 5-position grid penalty, and it was a bit of a handicap, but I focused on the start, not to make a jump start, but to have a good getaway. Jorn Schmidt-Stade, serial winner among the gentleman drivers, is hoping for a good 2nd race. His biggest rival, Carlos Rivas, will be starting behind him, but is buoyed by his triumph. We are where we belong, finally. Let's go on the grid for race number 2 on the Sunday. And Carlos Rivas is starting from P19, 2 places behind his competitor, Jorn Schmidt-Stade. Good crowd to enjoy the Porsche Carrera Cup racing. Thomas Preining will go from P1, Jaap van Lagen starts from P2, and Michael Ammermuller is behind him in P3. The lights go out, the race starts, and Thomas Preining stays in front, protects that inside line. But on board we can see how Michael Ammermuller puts himself alongside Jaap van Lagen and will go through to take up that P2 place. Michael had a better start. Thomas Preining braked a little early into turn 1. That was my problem. I was behind Thomas, so Ammermuller overtook on the outside. Thomas supported his teammate well, but it wasn't very good for me. Right from the off, very close racing action. Too close at times as Larry ten Voorde fighting here as we're on board with Henrik Skoog. And this is Jacob Eidsen behind Simonauer. And De Quesada is on the right-hand side. Keep your eyes on that car on the right-hand side. A little touch there and De Quesada spins, which does have consequences. As you can see, in avoidance, cars take to the grass and destroy some of the polystyrene markers. Now, Michael De Quesada will get going again. However, look at this. The 902 car of Lucas Sundal appears to be out of the race. Let's go on board with Tim Zimmerman. You can see De Quesada spinning. Jorn Schmidt-Stade and Tim Zimmerman are involved as well. It happened so quickly. I was at the exit to turn 3 when someone spun in front of me. I couldn't avoid him and hit him head on. It was the only option, the only way. Not only from behind, but especially from the front. I had a very good start, found a good line in the first 3 turns, and was directly behind Dylan Pereira, who spun at the exit to turn 4, directly into my line. I turned in, and due to the deceleration, Tim, and I think another one, hit my right and left rear. I was lucky I could continue. Not so lucky, Lucas Sundal. His race is over. Not good for the Porsche Carrera Cup Scandinavia Championship. Thomas Preining's in front, Michael Ammermuller and Van Lagen are following with Nacken and ten Voorde behind. Peter Schofen is fighting with Oscar Palm and also Stefan Andre Fiet. So he makes contact and causes a collision which involves Stefan Andre Fiet and also Christopher Bergström. At the front, everything, though, is in order. Thomas Preining, P1, Michael Ammermuller, P2, P3 for Jaap van Lagen, P4 for Marius Nacken, and Larry ten Voorde is at P5. Pontus Frederiksen is the best of the Porsche Carrera Cup Scandinavian drivers. And there you can see the 911 car making its way through the NGK chicane here at the 3.629 kilometer Nürburgring circuit. So, of course, with Lucas Sundal out, it's great news for the 911 driver Pontus Frederiksen for Torn Fract Racing. Let's go on board now with Dylan Pereira, who's trying to catch Gustav Malya. However, in his quest to get on terms with the Project 1 driver ahead of him, he loses control of the car here, provoked by trying to avoid a collision with Gustav Malya. The car spins around, is in the gravel, but will be able to return from there because it is now pointing in the right direction. He keeps his foot in. Let's see it from a different angle. Now, as you can see, he dives to the inside, realizes that Gustav Malya is not going to move at all, and therefore he has to take avoiding action, which sends the car spinning around through the gravel. But as I say, he keeps his foot in, and the momentum is there for him to be able to continue. On board the same situation, and let's see, it was a very quick pirouette for the Lechner Racing driver. So Frederiksen is still in front of the Porsche Carrera Cup Scandinavia race. He is between Sandro Kaibach and Jacob Eidsen. And right now is putting an overtake on Sandro Kaibach and goes through on the inside, on the loop section between the sprint track and the Grand Prix circuit. So good move from Frederiksen making that overtake. Marius Nacken versus Larry ten Voorde here, the fight for P4. Larry ten Voorde seems to be faster and attacks through on the inside, carries too much speed though, has to brake late, and Marius Nacken has the opportunity to come back at him.
I think it was on the limit, but still a clean move from my side. I was really worried about the puncture, but I felt it already that it was okay, and I knew it was only 1 or 2 laps left after this.
The Lechner team are watching the race action. Thomas Preining in front has to lap some of those back-marking cars. But he sets about that quest with no problems, and he will win the second race of the weekend as he takes the checkered flag. Ammermuller is P2, Jaap van Lagen is P3. Lechner Racing is used to winning. Carlos Rivas does it like Thomas Preining, and in the AM Championship wins 2 races at the Nürburgring. This situation with Jorn Schmidstadter and Tim Zimmermann, the gentleman driver, though, is relaxed about the overall situation of that particular battle.
That's racing. Yeah.
That's racing. The more we progress, the greater the risk that things like this can happen. I really accept that this can happen. On the contrary, it's rather that I was lucky that I could continue. The crash flat-spotted 2 of my tyres. The vibrations were incredibly heavy, and my tyres were square rather than round. I was really glad to take the flag. Third place, everything marvellous, nothing's happened in the championship. Thomas Preining celebrating in Parc Fermé, of course, taking 2 race wins here at the Nürburgring. Add those to the 2 race wins that he took at the Red Bull Ring as well, and it's 4 wins in a row. My engineer played a central role. So, I brought him a little present today. Franzi will surely like it. We work together very well, and I think it'll go on like that over the next few weeks. The legendary rally driver Stig Blomqvist making the trophy presentations. Michael Ammermuller is second. He's lost a lot of points to Thomas Preining. Is he worried about the championship standings? Let's see. It'll be another track next week. Only one part is similar. The middle sector is a bit different. Let's just see how it goes. If I finish second, I might be satisfied. More circuits lie in wait, and maybe the situation will be different then. So the champagne as next week, the Porsche Carrera Cup starts once again at the Nürburgring. Races 7 and 8, a part of the Oldtimer Grand Prix.